What's up there, guys? Thanks for tuning in. I'm Rick. This is Fanfare for the Conscious, and in the video today I'm going to be talking about Mark Sexton and his speech at Freedom Day demonstration in Parliament Square. Let's dive in.
Every snowflake, please not guilty in an avalanche.
We are peaceful, sensible people. We are sovereign people. So today we're gonna make an announcement through my good friend here, Mark Sexton. Now, just to give you a little bit of history, we're here really today to seek justice and accountability. Now, we know that there has been a severe lack of justice and accountability, not only in the last 15 months, but in the last decade and before that. Many people across the United Kingdom and across the world are now coming into the awakening and fighting for their rights.
Now I'm just going to stop there for a moment, and I just want to take a moment to try and assess the sort of numbers that we're looking at here. It's always difficult to do something like that because the mainstream media, those who don't want us to think that there is a large group of people who are feeling disaffected and feeling like they are unheard and want to make changes to the world. And the people there are always going to try and overestimate the number of people that there are at an event because they feel like their cause is important and they want to promote it, which I'm not saying it's not. But I would, hazard a guess that at least a couple of thousand people there, possibly more than that. If I do manage to find any information, I will put a little fact bar, down at the bottom with regards to how many people were there. But yeah, I just wanted to make a point of that. There does seem to be, a fairly significant number of people who are involved in this demonstration.
We are being watched throughout the world. The UK is being watched today by people all around the world. People are watching you stand up for your rights. Humanity is bringing itself together as it should. So, a little bit of history. Last year, myself and Mark worked on a project to present an evidence pack to the police, 972 pages of evidence, irrefutable evidence, to let them know that there has been a crime against the people.
Again, I'm just going to stop for a moment. I'm going to try and avoid cutting this up too much. It is a 28-minute video, but let's try and keep this brief. Find it very interesting that both Mark and Michael Obanisia are effectively trying to do the same thing, which is bring the government to criminal prosecution for their behaviour, particularly in the last year or so, but I think in the case of history it's been an awful lot longer than that. And wouldn't it be amazing if all the people who are individually trying to do this could find some common ground upon which they can all stand, whereby we can all agree to those fundamental principles and all assert our authority together, giving everybody else the freedom to pursue their lives as they see fit and to make decisions about their own existence rather than being told what they should believe by either one camp or the other.
This was rejected. It was refused. The investigation did not take place. We were given the evidence back.
Now you have to just bear with things for a moment. I'm going to talk over it because
What we have done today,
we are actually having some
and in the last
issues with the stream. I have looked at a few other videos and they are all like this, unfortunately. I've not been able to find an original
stand
that
on their own for the people.
doesn't have this loading and chopping and changing, although I'm sure it is out there.
So we have resubmitted fresh and overwhelming evidence that has to be addressed. So without further ado, I present the man.
Resubmitted. Admirable, I wouldn't ever say it wasn't, but we're almost pleading to the bullies to admit that they are bullies, and I don't think that's going to work. I've said this before and I'll say it again, their system is not designed to deal with the living men and women of the land, existing on the land. It's designed to deal with persons, municipal corporations, fictional entities, and we will always struggle to get justice for people in a system that doesn't even understand the word people.
Who is going to do that for us. I trust this man fully. I've been working with him for 12 months. He's a good man, and I vouch for him. People, I'll give you Mark Sexton.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a public speaker, I promise you. There's something I need to say and you need to listen to me very carefully before I read out what I want to say. I am not paid opposition. I am a retired police constable. I am not a Freemason. I am a parent. I'm doing this for my daughter. I don't want money, I don't want notoriety, I don't need likes on Facebook. I'm a quiet, unassuming man. I have post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of my time in the police. That's why I retired, okay? I'm doing this for my daughters. And for every single person here, for your children and for your grandchildren. You can probably tell I'm not used to this, so if you can't hear me, tell me. Can you hear me at the back? Right. Okay. Many members of Parliament are knowingly and willfully causing death, harm and loss to many millions of people across the United Kingdom and have been since March 2020.
A lot longer than that in my opinion. But if that's the bare minimum we can agree on, I'm happy to go with that.
The whole pandemic has been based around the number of cases and the testing system, namely PCR. There is irrefutable, undeniable, factual evidence to show the PCR tests are 100% false, fraudulent, and not fit for purpose. They are not gold standard. Any testing threshold over 35, we all know, is deemed useless and should be ignored. It does not determine any infection. We have irrefutable facts from multiple freedom of information requests. The NHS is always using 45 cycles. Irrefutable evidence. The SARS-CoV-2 virus has never been isolated or purified, thereby using a false testing mechanism to find a virus that is yet to be proven to exist. On this basis, the whole pandemic is a fraud. And therefore, the Coronavirus Act of 2020 is unlawful, is unjust, is immoral, it is unethical, and it is criminal.
Okay, I'm just going to stop now for a moment and piss a few people off. I think this latest symptom of the fraud, the pandemic fraud that we've seen, because I do fundamentally think that the whole setup and the justification of the means is fraudulent in itself. But I think you're walking a fairly fine line in terms of being able to unify people if we're focusing on our opinions about medicine. I'm not an anti-vaxxer. Plenty of people have called me that. I'm pro-choice. If you want to inject whatever in your body, feel free to do so, as long as it's not going to harm me. And if it is going to harm me, let me know so I can make sure I stay well away from you. But there have been far more fundamental crimes committed against us long before this scam that we're currently experiencing. This is just another part of the social engineering project, and the crimes are far more ancient than just what's gone on in the last year. I would say, if that's the base thing that we can all agree on, what Mark's just said there about the PCR test being fraudulent or whatever, then that's brilliant. We can go ahead with that, and that is my personal position. However, I don't think it's useful to make that a primary reason for the action of putting our public servants in their place. I think we could go much more fundamental than that, rather than dealing with the specifics of what's happening now. I'm not saying we don't deal with the Coronavirus Act. For sure it is unlawful, but that's besides any issues around the virus in itself. I'm going to leave it at that, and we'll carry on.
God bless you, Mark.
Many thousands of top scientists, professors, doctors, immunologists and virologists are speaking about the pandemic, the restrictions imposed by every government around the world. These same experts are being deliberately silenced and removed from all social media platforms for going against the scripted narrative. The people of Britain have been subject to lockdowns in their homes, wearing face masks, social distancing, not allowed to see their loved ones, especially the elderly, who have been left to die alone, en masse, in care homes and hospitals. There has always been reliable, proven, cheap and safe medications for the treatment of coronavirus. Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, zinc, vitamin C, vitamin D3 are proven to have almost 100% success in reducing symptoms and death within 48 hours. This irrefutable evidence has been suppressed and nefariously demonised. A newly released report also proves intravenous vitamin C has a 100% success rate treating coronavirus. We all need to know that this treatment was deliberately hidden away by all Western governments, including those in there. There was only ever going to be shame
Just before Mark continues, again, the sentiment of everything that's going on here, I'm absolutely 110% on board with. The intent and the goal of what's occurred at this demonstration is something I feel very, very passionately. The method, however, is something that I find ineffectual. Protest and demonstration has to get to the point where it is so disruptive to the system that it is forced to change before it can be effective. And I think something like this does have to be coupled with a more formal method of asserting ourselves, documentation, paperwork, notices, organisation, besides getting a whole bunch of people in one place to shout at Parliament from across the road. It makes us look like a mob. It makes us look like we can't be organised enough to conduct our own affairs, and it effectively gives them justification for what they're doing. Because if we can't come together and put our differences aside to agree on the fundamentals and then organise based off that, then why shouldn't they rule? If we are the mob, if we are what they say we are, which is undisciplined, unorganised, incapable of higher thinking to the point where we realise that we've got to give personal choice a wide berth in terms of allowing it to be a primary factor in our society rather than shying away from it, then why are we not just justifying what they're doing?
All they wanted to do was force a vaccine on the world's population. We know that. At no point has any government advertised, stop smoking, stop drinking, eat healthy, get regular exercise and sunshine. Instead, all we hear is vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. Big Pharma. It is now clear the vaccine rollout is causing significant number of deaths. Serious harm and injury to over 1 million people in the UK alone. The government's own yellow card scheme of reporting these events shows this irrefutable and damning evidence. All of this considering there is a 99.96% chance of recovery, and the government admits very few people will actually die. The double vaccinated are now filling up the hospitals and testing positive for COVID. Proof the vaccine does not work and is more deadly than the virus itself.
Again, nothing about that I don't agree with, for sure. But again, making this about people's personal choice to take an experimental medication or not, I'm not even going to use the V word because it's not. They had to redefine what that was in order to get this classified as. That's people's own choice. If they want to do that, then they're entitled to do that. And I think, again, we need to put aside these ideas of medical freedom. I mean, definitely hold it as being something that should be core to our belief system, but we can't politicize that. And this, when we focus on that as being a big part of the fact that a bunch of people have chosen to take a vaccine, which they have chosen to do it. They've been coerced, for sure. They have been coerced, but this is like Milgram's obedience to authority. You can say no. People did say no. Certain people did, but most people didn't, despite how morally wrong they knew what they were doing was. So, again, it's anyone's own choice to have a medical procedure, and we need to enshrine that rather than focusing on the fact that a bunch of people have taken a potentially dangerous medication. If they've been coerced and manipulated into doing that, we need to deal with that. But first of all, we need to agree that choice, that medical freedom should be a choice. And if we can't have that conversation, then we're always going to be a divided people.
It must also be borne in mind, and of huge importance, on the 19th of March 2020, we all know that the UK government downgraded coronavirus. It was no longer deemed or listed as a high consequence infectious disease. The reason given? Low mortality. Yet lockdown still occurred a few days later. The constant terror we have been exposed to and the fear-driven propaganda since March 2020 has destroyed our economy, killed our elderly, destroyed many home lives, created a significant increase in suicide, but the worst and most significant and devastating effect has been on our children.
That for me is one of the biggest. The provably lowest risk group and those least likely to be involved in the transmission of illness are the ones who have suffered the most for this. They've been denied the education that we pay for out of our own pockets, and the personal choice of people to assemble for any purposes, be that educating or otherwise, has been taken away from us, and people have been prosecuted for that, and people have had their freedoms infringed upon on that very, very fundamental level. Should those at risk be able to shield themselves and be supported by a community if there is a potentially dangerous disease? Yes, of course they should. But should everyone be forced to give up their freedoms and tank an entire economy for the sake of keeping, of not even actually achieving keeping a small few number of people safe? I'm a very pragmatic person, and were I actually to believe that the lockdowns and the masks and everything else had an actual measurable, not statistically manipulable evidence for what it is that they're doing, I would be more on board with it. But this is not something that is the existential threat that we were led to believe it is. The allowance of the policy change and the allowance of the shift in our culture and our society and in our law is the existential threat, not some virus.
Feedback. Our children have been told if they hug grandma, they will kill grandma. This is mental torture, mental abuse, and this is all at the hands of the government and the mainstream media. Yet it turns out it's the government who was and is killing grandma, and the data extrapolation regarding the use of midazolam. It now proves this is what's happening. The work done by Mark Oakford, Claire Wills-Harrison, Michael O'Byrne-Sia has been absolutely outstanding in trying to get this information out to us. And I salute them.
We need to be doing more than having you saluting the mark. We need to have people like you and Michael O'Byrne-Sia in the same room figuring out what we're going to do about this and putting aside our egos in order to determine something that is going to speak to everybody on a fundamental level. And if it doesn't speak to everybody, it's not good enough. And it will be a hard process, and it will be painstaking, and it will be tedious, But it has to be done at this point now. We have to get down to those brass tacks. Forget everything else. What can we all agree is true?
Our elderly were isolated, abused, do not resuscitate orders, no food, no water, administered life-ending drugs, and buried or cremated with no autopsies. Why? To hide their crimes. As many as 100,000 potential victims of murder genocide, not just of those with COVID, but all case mortality over the age of 65 years. That is horrific. Let's not forget the constant double standards openly displayed by members of Parliament. Neil Ferguson, Dominic Cummings, Matthew Hancock. They have...
Who has just slipped off out of office without prosecution. May I add, I believe, prepared to be proven wrong. But exactly the problem. That they make themselves, or the system makes them, beyond our justice.
all broken the rules. Yet they spoke up that we must stay at home, protect the NHS and not see family and friends, while they are running around the country having sexual relationships and laughing at us. And they are doing this unchallenged. The lies and the false promises have taken their toll. We are never going to be released from the clutches of this corrupt, evil and criminal government. Therefore, we the people, we will now withdraw our consent. We no longer want our
Starting to sound a little bit like a broken record. But I can't help it. I really, really can't. Great sentiment, 100% on board with it. How are we asserting that? How are we proving that there are enough people that agree with that to make it enforceable? How do we show them that we outnumber them empirically? By recording that we agree to this. And that's not just flashing a camera across, a handful of people at a demonstration. That means putting your name on a piece of paper. And it sounds really arbitrary, but that is the sort of thing that their system recognises. It doesn't recognise you in the flesh. It recognises a legal and lawful representation of you, but not you yourself. Not the flesh being. It's as a viewer and a commenter on one of my previous videos had said, it's like a monopoly token. If you don't have a token to represent you on the board, then they don't accept that you're playing the game. That piece of paper with your name written on it and a thumbprint seal to say that you are the living man and woman with the authority behind that signature, that representation of you, that fictionalization of your authority, which can stand in place of you because it's lawful. That is what we need for every single man and woman, and every single one of the people there needs to be putting their name on a piece of paper to say, yes, this is what I want, this is what is going to happen, and I agree with this. And then the person, Mark in this case, who's representing all those people, he can stand there and say, I represent X number of people and I can prove it. Because they've written on a piece of paper to say that what I'm telling you is what they would tell you if they were here. And the sentiment, brilliant, beautiful, love it. Whereas we need to prove that this happened, that we had this convention, we had this agreement. This is a convention, this is a gathering, this is an assembly of people that are all agreeing to something, but their system has no proof of it. We've got no way of proving that any of these people were there according to their system. And we have to use that understanding to play the game enough to tell them to fuck off. Look at them, thousands of them. Thousands, there's clearly thousands there. And as much as that has got loads of weight to me and you and any living being that saw that, their system doesn't care that there was 1,000, 10,000, even 100,000 people there, unless you put your name on a piece of paper, unless you have a token to represent yourself in the game, which we have allowed to assert authority over us by our lack of asserting ourselves over it in terms that they will recognise.
You are not fit to govern me, my children, my friends, my family, any member of the United Kingdom. You are not fit for purpose. You are not welcome. Leave.
That, but on paper. On paper. They're not going to look at this video on YouTube. They're going to pretend that this thing didn't happen. We need to serve them with paperwork that lawfully represents us and that they will recognise. And that is a system of law that is superior to theirs, and that is the law of the land. It may have previously been called common law in the English tongue, but they've bastardised that word and they've stolen that word and they've usurped that word to mean that which is unwritten, which they can paint as whatever they want, really. And they've chosen to paint as what is between the lines of the written law. So how it is interpreted in given situations by a judge or a jury. Let the ruling stand. So previous judgments ring true throughout history is what the theory is, which only works provided the original ruling was actually righteous. Anyway, we can assert ourselves as living beings through lawful persons, your signature on a piece of paper, because they won't recognise your living person, but they won't recognise your living being, your flesh body. They will recognise your lawful person and only your lawful person. Their system is not designed to deal with the living. It's only designed to deal with the fictional and the dead.
We are also here today to instruct you, the constables, our police service, who swore an oath to protect us from harm, injury and loss. We are instructing you to arrest Boris Johnson.
I like that he's speaking to the police in the office of their constabulary. Some of you will know, some of you won't, but police actually hold two different offices, and it's a combined oath where they make a declaration as a constable of the peace, and then they make a declaration as an officer of the police. And the officer position is one of the maritime law, and the constable position is actually one of the law of the land. However, since all our constabularies are now incorporated, the fact that the constables are part of that incorporated constabulary makes them subject to the office of police officer, not just holding the office of police constable.
Arrest Matt Hancock, Nadine Zahawi, Priti Patel, Patrick Ballance, Chris Whitty, Michael Gove, and Dominic Raab. The crimes being committed against us, the people of the United Kingdom, are the most serious crimes ever committed by any government against its people. The evidence we possess is vast, factual, reliable and irrefutable. This evidence has been ignored and dismissed by you, the police, for far too long. Today we call upon you, the constables, whom we employ, who we pay with our taxes, and who we give consent to you. Consent on the understanding you carry out your duties without fear or favour, and you must be independent of the government. We ask you to enter Parliament to arrest those responsible. Take them into custody.
Again, if we formalise our authority as we the people and prove that we represent an actual body of living beings via lawful persons, then we wouldn't need to ask them. We would command them, or we would remove their authority to police us. It's very simple. We are policed by consent. We are governed by consent. Withdrawal of consent in a formal manner is the only way, along with reconstruction of something that will serve us, based around the fundamental principles that we can all agree on. That is the way forward.
Take them into custody and conduct a thorough criminal
in paperwork, in writing, with lawful authority. Definitely thousands. Definitely thousands. Top down.
We are asking you to enter Parliament and arrest them, take them into custody and conduct a thorough, criminal and transparent investigation into the crimes that these people are responsible for committing unabated. Mate, what? Right. Quiet down, please.
Keep the noise down for Mark, please.
Just wait a minute, mate. These crimes have been going on unabated since March 2020. The crimes that they are committing against you and me: misfeasance in public office, misconduct in public office, murder, genocide, terrorism, crimes against humanity, fraud, conspiracy to commit murder, torture, false imprisonment, administering a noxious substance or poison with intent to cause harm or death, multiple breaches of the Human Rights Act, child abuse, kidnapping, blackmail, theft, attempted murder, corporate manslaughter and conspiracy to commit all of the above.
Now that is more like it. From my perspective, that is the sort of down to the wood, very plain and obvious crimes that they are, guilty of and should be investigated for, in my eyes, or that I believe they are guilty of. We have to presume innocence, don't we? But again, we've got to keep it described in such a manner that everyone can agree on it. Again, I'd feel like a broken record, but it's so core and so essential to us changing the system for the better, is figuring out that and agreeing on that in a formal manner that will have weight, that they will recognise.
What about treason?
Treason!
Just before we go on, I'm not saying that any of this should go away. This is essential. This is exposure. But it needs to have that formalised backing where we actually serve them with documentation. And you know what, as much as I might not be so on board with the Article 61 crowd simply because I will not declare allegiance to a monarch that has never served my interests, or barons that have never served my interests, and I don't think we need them anymore. At least they are organised enough to have a paperwork structure together. So, you know, as much as I might not be on board with the exact details of their method and would love to have a conversation about coming to some place of common understanding, at least they're organised enough to do that.
We instruct you. We demand this. We demand it is done now, today and without delay.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You may all be aware this is some of the evidence that police are being given. Freedom of information request showing the NHS is using 45 cycles.
We know.
A video from Dr. Anthony Fauci confirming 35 plus is useless. A letter from Dr. Mike Yeadon. Former Vice President of Pfizer of 17 years confirming fraud, lies by ministers and serious concerns about the vaccines and lockdowns. A letter from Dr.
I'm going to take a moment to speak to anyone who might be raging now and about to tap into the comments about how there's no evidence that what Mark is claiming here is true. How willing would you be to dismiss a rape victim who merely accused someone with again very little evidence? You have to investigate it. If there is if there's any suspicion that these crimes are occurring, we have to have a thorough and transparent investigation. We can't just assume it's not happening. If there is any possibility, it has to be investigated, because the potential for crime, the potential for harm on a vast scale is unconscionable, and we must determine whether what is being claimed by so many of these doctors is true and in an open format. I'm not 100% on board with either mainstream medicine or terrain theory. I think the truth is more nuanced than that, and I think it's a bit absolutist to assume otherwise. However, again, I would simply like to see these things discussed in an open, civilized forum, and have the truth be revealed to us by the preponderance of evidence. And the fact that the mainstream system is not willing to have that conversation is very strong evidence to me that it stands to lose a lot. And that doesn't mean to say it stands to be proven entirely wrong, but I think the potential loss of authority and loss of control that might come from having that conversation is too scary to them to even consider engaging in.
To Tess Murray.
Yes!
Also raising serious concerns about the vaccine, the deaths and the injury, and demanding an immediate cessation of the vaccine programme. Evidence to support the highly successful treatments and reductions in deaths by the use of ivermectin.
Yes!
Again,
Fantastic letter.
Again, I wouldn't, as much as I personally wouldn't choose to take it, I wouldn't argue that we have to stop that programme from happening. I just think fully informed consent needs to be given to the people who are taking this product, and I don't think that's happening. I'm not even sure the doctors in a lot of cases are fully informed. I think a lot of them are, falling prey to this appeal, this obedience to authority phenomenon that we see in psychology. So again, I wouldn't say call a halt to the vaccine programme, but I would say certainly, for sure, make it illegal, because it is immoral, but make it illegal to force or coerce someone into buying that product. You wouldn't allow that with any other product available on the market. You know, you wouldn't think that it was right that people were forced to buy a certain brand of television. I mean, what you're talking about there is you know, the worst aspects of communistic thinking, whereby your choice to do or do not something with your body, or choose what it is that you are going to give your time and your energy to, is taken away from you.
From lawyer Claire Wills Harrison, proving evidence as to the suspicious deaths of the elderly in care homes and hospitals, in particular the use of midazolam at the time of significant increases of deaths in care homes and hospices, and all of the graphs are there and attached. Concerns raised by Dr. Robert Malone, the inventor of the mRNA vaccine, especially regarding children, and advising, do not administer the vaccine to under 18. Freedom of information request from Birmingham City Council regarding the cremations and burials from 2015 and 2020. The 6th lowest cremations and burials in that 6-year period. Where is the pandemic? The government's own website confirming coronavirus is no longer a HCID. Dr. Sam White, an NHS whistleblower, well done to him. All of his evidence proving and showing the wrongdoings at the hands of the NHS. Forced, doctors and nurses are forced to do things against their wishes.
We're going to remove this man from the court, people. This man's going to be removed. Good, this man's being removed. This man's being removed. Okay?
This gentleman has cancer. Please show grace. He is sick because cancer patients are dying everywhere. He just wanted to have his voice heard. Please show grace.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And number 10, there are... We all have a number of freedom of information requests about deaths. We all have other incidents showing it hasn't been purified or isolated. And we've all got many photos from mainstream media and their double standards. We've all seen, 1 minute they're on the TV studio 2 metres apart, the next minute they're at Wembley, or they're at Ascot, or they're at Wimbledon, sat together. Hypocrisy.
Kids can't go to school.
I'm nearly there. Thousands more sources proving and showing irrefutable evidence, supporting the fact the pandemic has been used as a means to control and not about our health. All evidence and expert witnesses are available for viewing and scrutiny. To our constables, that evidence is available to you. The government are deliberately creating a two-tier divided society. The vaccinated and the unvaccinated. No, we will not let this happen. The right to choose bodily integrity now seems to be vilified. Those unvaccinated are going to be excluded from taking part in society. And this proves this is not about our health. This is only about a vaccine. This is about controlling us, and we will not let that happen. To all the constables, you must know, with the vaccine you still transmit, you still catch, and are more likely to die of COVID once vaccinated. The vaccine programme is proving to be a disaster and must be stopped. Prime Ministers and Presidents flew into the UK with all of their entourage in the thousands. Boris Johnson flew from London to Cornwall. If we are all encouraged and told to have a Zoom meeting and work from home, Why the hell did they come here? Practice what you preach. Surely they can hold a Zoom meeting for only 7 individuals. This hypocrisy is a disgusting abuse of the public office and a clear indication that COVID is of no concern to the rich and powerful. Thousands of UEFA officials flew into London for the final of Euro 2020. None of them were in quarantine and they were allowed to return home freely without any obstruction or curtailment to their freedom of movement. Why is this allowed to happen? Yet we can't go on holiday. Why can they come here on holiday? This is not a democracy. This is a dictatorship. We are all equal in the eyes of the law. Yet those in positions of authority, those who have money, those who do elite sports, businessmen and women are allowed to travel freely. One rule for them and a different rule for us. I will not be dictated to any longer by liars and hypocrites. I am a free living man. I have sovereignty as a free man. I am not a slave to this corrupted system, and I will not be subjugated. Police constables, do your job. Do your job. Do your job. Do your job.
Mark is now going to read out a 2-page sheet about our powers as citizens. Information that a lot of people do not know. We need to make this public, and we need to let people know where they stand, who they are, and what rights they have.
I just want to make note of the word citizen there. I'm going to come back to it in a moment.
I'll hand you back over to Mark.
Tell us what to do, Mark.
You'll be pleased to know this is only 2 pages, but this is relevant to every person in this audience here today. Every person across the United Kingdom and everybody around the world. You've got the same powers. If the police fail to carry out their lawful duty by conducting a full, transparent and criminal investigation into the government ministers of this country, we the people will use and utilise the laws of the land as is our right.
Laws of the land. Laws of the land. That is very, very important that we remember that specific phrase he's just used there.
As is our right under common law.
Common law is a very, very icky phrase, and I know a lot of people think it means the same as the law of the land, but it doesn't. Law can either be written or unwritten. Legislative law is that which is written, and common law is that which is interpreted based on the written law. Those 2 types of law can sit in any jurisdiction. The land is the jurisdiction because that's where we live, and this is where we conduct our trade, and this is where we exist. Their system of law is the law of the sea, and if you use the terms common law to someone who is in maritime jurisdiction, then they will assume that you mean common law of the maritime jurisdiction, or admiralty law, or whatever. So we're going to be very careful with that word, and we've got to really understand exactly what it does mean.
But also, under the laws of the land, Section 24A of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act of 1984, also known as a citizen's arrest. This is a lawful arrest. And we can also use Section 3 of the Criminal Law Act of 1967. It gives any man or woman the lawful and justifiable authority to arrest, use force as is reasonable and necessary to effect said arrest, and detain the arrested person according to law. We all have that power when people are committing crimes. All of us.
Now, I would like to, I really want to have the opportunity to speak to Mark. One of the coordinators with whom I work is in direct personal contact with him, has met him, and is keeping Mark aware of what we're trying to achieve with the lawful bank community and the England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland conventions. But we've got to be really careful about this terminology citizen, because again, in their form of law, citizen means servant of the state. It means an employee of the state, someone who is subject to the state, be that the Queen or the government. Though I do find it very interesting that you use the term man or woman. Normally when you're talking in maritime jurisdiction or other forms of corporate jurisdiction, you're talking about persons rather than men or women. If a document is referencing men or women, then it will be lying in the land jurisdiction. So I'm not sure whether that's something he's paraphrased or whether it's something he's directly read off the legislation itself. I would like to speak to him about that in a little bit more detail.
You, the constables, are servants of the people. You too are duty bound to abide by these laws. The same laws all free men and women abide by. Government works for the people. Constables work for the people. Therefore, we the people are the higher authority.
That is true. This was asserted in the Declaration of Independence that governments gain their just power from the consent of the governed. If we do not consent to it, then they don't have the power. We have to gift it to them.
We do not accept, we do not consent to any rights and curtailments of our freedoms, inalienable rights, or to remove our human rights. We will not accept it anymore. They are afforded to us at birth and given by God Almighty. And they cannot and will not be taken away by any government or any other man or woman.
100% on board with everything you're saying there, Mark. 100% on board.
We must also remember all police stations, all police vehicles, police property, we own it. All government buildings, including Parliament, we own it. All court and legal jurisdictional buildings, we own it. If we the people decide to arrest, detain and then using 12 good men and women of the land, lawfully and peacefully, to set up common law courts, we will. This is our right, and we the people will then decide on punishment once those found guilty have had a fair trial. This is every man and woman's right in law. And today, what about if we vote in some of our own laws?
I'm just going to stop before we go forward with this. I've watched this clip before, and I'm in love with the spirit. However, as I've mentioned time and time again, and I'm going to very quickly move on from, is this how we want to make laws? Shouting in the street? Is that how we want to determine what constitutes our law? Is that how we should go about it? Bunch of people gathering in the street and shouting yes or no. I don't personally think that is, and if anyone can give me a good reason why that is an appropriate way of trying to make law, ad hoc in the street, one person reading something out and, you know, everyone else saying yes or no. Is that really what we want? Or do we want something more formal than that? Because I agree with the sentiment that we, the people, can write the law. It's people that write laws all the time, and they're just men and women like me and you. But is this the way we want to go about it? That's all I will leave you to think about while you're listening to it. Again, agree with the sentiment, totally, 100%. Not so much the methods.
Laws will be agreed and accepted by millions of people across the UK, and accepted from coming from us the people, by the people, of the people. These are the laws that we can all say right now, yes, 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 or no, no, no. Right. The first law that we the people will pass today. Law number 1, to stop those responsible in public office from committing any further crimes resulting in harm, injury and loss to millions of people across the United Kingdom. Any no's? Law number 2, stop the vaccination programme immediately. Law number 3, stop the vaccination programme being administered to our children. Law number 4, remove all restrictions imposed as a result of the Coronavirus Act 2020. Any no's? Number 5, an immediate withdrawal of the Coronavirus Act Bill of 2020, and for it to be deemed obsolete, never be allowed to be part of British law or our Constitution ever again. I need some vodka. Okay. Law number 6, to remove any influence from the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, to put an immediate halt to Agenda 21. Anyone knows? Law number 7, to open all NHS establishments, including GP surgeries, and to start to reduce the significant backlog for treatments, surgeries and patient care. Any no's? Number 8, to put in place an emergency government that is fit for purpose. Not one that is working towards any agendas other than for the benefit and well-being of the people of the United Kingdom.
I have to stop with that particular one. That is exactly what needs to happen. These people clearly don't represent us anymore.
Any no's? Number 9. This one's going to be very popular. Our 9th law that we're voting for today. It's like the Eurovision. To cancel all court cases in relation to any breach of the Coronavirus Act. And any fines in relation to breaching our right to protest. Any no's? Law number 10. This one will be popular as well. To refund in full any person or business issued a fine as a result of the Coronavirus Act 2020. Any no's? 2 to go. Number 11. This one, I know Piers is going to be happy with this one. To remove all stickers, all screens and every shop, bank, school, public space, public transport that bears any reference or resemblance to COVID, the 2 metre rule or wearing a mask. Any no's? Okay, the last one. To our police, please listen to this very carefully. We are voting this law in now. There is more here than the 650 in there. We have the majority. Law number 12 of the people today, to make a national broadcast to the people of the United Kingdom on all television channels, to make them aware of the above laws, to allow them the freedoms to go about their daily lives without being subject to fear and propaganda, confirming the removal of face masks and all restrictions forthwith. We will remain peaceful and lawful. When the above is carried out in full, we will give you back your consent to police. We will do this on the understanding the police work for the people, by the people, of the people, and nothing more. We will engage in full dialogue at all times. We respect the law and we will abide by the laws of the land. But we the people will remain steadfast in order to bring this nightmare to a peaceful end. We reserve the right as the people to give or take away consent to govern or police at any time. We are the power. When the government or police abuse their authority and their position of trust that we, the people, give to them, we will exercise our fundamental rights and remove their consent. We are the power. We are the people. We tell them what to do. We tell them what we want.
God bless you, Mark Sexton. God bless you.
So I'm just going to stop it this there. This is shaping up to be an extremely long video indeed. And I just want to reiterate what I've been pausing to say all the way through this recording. And that is very simply that, yes, the sentiment is there, and I'm 100% on board with the idea that we have the authority to assert our will over the government and over the police forces which purport to represent and protect us. What I'm concerned about is having an effective method of achieving that, and for me that is notifying them and then replacing them, making their jobs obsolete by the very presence of a system which makes the need for them irrelevant. Thank you very much for watching, if indeed you still are. If you did like the content, don't forget to like, subscribe, thumbs up, notification bell, all of that nonsense. You can also find me on BitChute and brand YouTube, and you can follow me at lawfulbank.com. Take care of yourselves, guys. Don't forget to stay free, think free, and act free, and I'll see you next time.